First of all, thanks guys for having me today. As Blake said, I spent about 16 years of my career with McCarthy. McCarthy is a large general contractor, been around for 150 plus years. They really hung their hat on operational excellence. That was their thing. These are engineers. These are people who want to do a great job. They have high quality. They want to deliver a great product to their client. When we did some surveying, like early before we even did client feedback tool, we did some surveying. What we heard organizationally was, you guys deliver a great product. You do not deliver a great journey or experience. And so what they found from a competitive perspective is that they needed to start paying attention to that client perspective, that client point of view. So I'm going to say something that's kind of got blanket appeal, I think, for professional services firms, folks that are accountants and attorneys and engineers and architects. They go to school and they build their profession and their skill set on delivering stuff to people. They might be okay if there weren't clients involved, because then they could just do the work. They went into this because engineers want to do the engineering piece. They don't want to hear about the client's perspective. Architects are like, hey, look at this cool building we designed for you. Don't you love it? Well, yeah, we'd like to give some feedback. Feedback? No, this is great. You're going to love it. Contractors, I literally was teaching a group about client focus, and I have some superintendents in the room, and I'm talking to them about, hey, you got to listen, you got to ask some questions of your clients, and they're going to need to like you if they're going to hire you. They need to like you. You have to have some sort of, you guys have used the word empathy a lot. You got to have some empathy for the client, recognize their challenges or their issues. And the superintendent who'd been doing this for 20 years is like, what? Why? We have the skills, we have the knowledge, we have the capability. Why do we need to tell them all this stuff? Why can't we just go build it? I'm like, that's part of the challenge in that professional services environment, is they want to do the work. They don't always want to take the time to listen or hear from their clients, because, as you guys have heard, there might be a little bad news that comes with it. They might have to change something that they're already doing that they like to do well. So when you introduce client feedback into your environment, into your professional services environment, it's going to change things. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is what does it change? What does it affect? And how can you better navigate or escort your organization through these changes to try to make them stick and become a better part of your organization? We had really good luck with McCarthy doing this. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, have experienced it and seen some of the challenges. So let's jump in. Here we go. Hey, that's the title slide again. There we go. Just to kind of get your head around it, culture, let me differentiate between culture and change for a second. Culture is something that you observe. Culture is something you try to understand. Culture is something that you try to look for different indications of. Culture is not something you necessarily change. Culture changes because you change other things. And so when you think about what are those other things I need to change in order to change culture, it's a lot of this stuff. If you're going to have barriers to change in your organization, it's because of a lot of this stuff. And so the stuff we're going to talk about is going to help you kind of understand, okay, what levers can I adjust or can I move to make client experience, the use of client feedback, better or more able to be effectively integrated into my organization if I do a couple things differently, especially in a professional services environment. That's just up there for you to kind of reference. So as your CX culture evolves and client feedback is more available and measurable, these are the things that you're kind of hoping happens. This is some of that culture stuff or some of that change that you can drive that you hope actually takes hold. For example, you hope client-facing roles become more prominent. Those people with those skill sets should have a bigger role and be more recognized in your organization. You're hopeful that that happens. Client satisfaction becomes a key measure of success instead of just profit, or instead of billable hours, or instead of maybe some of the quality metrics and some of those things you might put in place. You want client satisfaction to become a key metric of success. You want it to raise up and become something more noticeable. And relationship building and communication skills are perceived to be of high value. Now the folks who have some of those soft skills might be shifting in terms of the way they're perceived organizationally if this feedback's coming through and you've got one person who delivers a good, you might have two people of equal skill delivering, really great results or really great product at the end of the day. But the person who delivers the better experience is going to be the person who's probably going to start getting recognized more often than not. So these are all good things. You want these to happen in your organization. However, there's a caveat. How do you recognize exceptional client focus without devaluing technical expertise? So this is part of that, as you're starting to use feedback more, your culture is going to shift and evolve, and that's going to make some people uncomfortable. So you've got to help kind of navigate that and make sure that that goes really, really well. So how do you do that? A couple things. I've seen it a couple times already today. Where's Andrea? I saw the balanced scorecard in Andrea's presentation, which was great. If you're not familiar with Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard, one of the things you bring to your organization when you start to introduce more client experience, more client feedback, that becomes a metric in your client satisfaction bucket. However, your organization might not have a client satisfaction bucket. If they don't, you need to teach them about the balanced scorecard, which is 4 things. 1, you want them to talk about and measure financial results, operational results, client satisfaction or client success results, and employee satisfaction or engagement results. They have to start changing their conversations to include all 4 of those things to become a more well-balanced organization. So that's a big thing you can do to educate them on why client experience is so important. I heard someone else say this. It might have been Karen, maybe. Differentiate between client success and client satisfaction. You said that, I think so. Yes? About 99% of what Karen said, I 100% agreed with. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does or not. With professional services folks, one of the things I used to teach when I would talk about this with a room full of engineers, because they're like, well, we can't just do what the client tells us to do. Sometimes what the client says is stupid. I'm like, well, that's right, because they're trying to make decisions about the building they're building or how they want to build it. They may be uninformed, I think might be a better word than stupid. Okay. But there is a line you have to draw because it's professional services. Your job is to give great advice. Your job is to do wonderful work in the accounting or legal or engineering or architecture space. The client can't always be right. So it's not always about just pure client satisfaction. It has to be about making sure the conversation revolves around client success. What do they need to be successful? I think Ryan talked about that a little bit in his presentation this morning. It's about understanding how your client measures success. Your job is to help them get there, not necessarily always do exactly what they tell you to do. And so differentiating between client success and client satisfaction is a key component as well. Third one, as these client-facing folks become more prominent, the communication skills, the relationship building skills, and all of that becomes more prominent, don't forget about your technical experts. Don't forget about the value that they're bringing to the table. May not be as always 100% user-friendly. Create work or project lifecycle transparency so that everybody knows what the different elements are that are being brought to bear to make that client successful. Start getting everybody to know what, I think someone else said that, I forget who said that, about making sure everybody knows what everybody else is doing so that if you're the client-facing person who happens to have those skills, you can brag on all the people behind you doing all the technical work. And they become part of that client experience. Like, you don't want to talk to Dave, but Dave's going to kill it on your project. But don't talk to him. He's going to kill it, but we're not talking to Dave because he needs to sit in a room and by himself and be quiet. But make them a part of the story. Help bring them into the team. All right, keep rolling. As it evolves, client feedback's more available and measurable. Now, client suggestions for improvement are captured and demand action. Uh-oh. They have a voice in the conversation. They have a new way of interacting with you. Client-facing employees want to address these issues and solve problems. So if they hear about the problems, they're like, well, we're hearing about it. Now we want to fix it. How do we fix it? I think someone mentioned something about that earlier. It's a nice little way to integrate all this stuff. Employees want to do great work. They want to help the clients be successful. That's why there's such a huge connection between client satisfaction and employee engagement. They want to address those issues and solve problems. And the client, this is a fun one. As you measure client experience and you get better at it, guess what your client's expectations do? Well, they go up. And so now you have to be prepared for their expectations being higher. If you deliver great experience, they're going to want it all the time. And you got to be prepared organizationally for how that happens. So how do you do that? How do you avoid the trap of asking for direct feedback? Give us your feedback, but we're not going to empower anybody to do anything about it. We're just going to grab the feedback. Thanks for asking. How you've got to build an organization that has inherent in it the ability, the skill, the knowledge, and the empowerment to be able to do something with that feedback and drive it in the direction it needs to go. So a couple things to help you there. As you launch this, as you dig in, as you talk about, hey, we're going to get more feedback. It's going to be direct. It's going to be specific. It's going to be detailed, granular. Prepare your leaders and client-facing employees for the increased activity. This is work. I think Client Savvy, you guys might offer the ability to handle some of this new work through some sort of program so that it doesn't fall on the organization in any way. But this is more work than people are expecting. It's not just a survey. This is actionable information and data that may change the way that you do your work. That's different than, well, we got our scores. That's not how this works. This is about changing your environment in order to do more work for these particular clients in a way that's more meaningful for them. So let them know there's more activity coming. Second one, this one's critically important. Teaching them to balance the needs of the client and the needs of the business. Because sometimes the pendulum can swing the other way. Now, and I see this happening in engineering and architecture firms, they swing the other direction and they start giving so much client attention that they forget about what? The business side, the profitability, the hours that they're supposed to be billing. They may go over budget. They may do all kinds of things. They may just start giving things to clients, like just saying, hey, whatever you need, we got it, we got it. They've got to learn that balance. What does the business, your own internal organization need? What's the business need? And what do your clients need? And figure out so that they're balanced and a little bit keeping each other in check. This is one of those things. I've had this conversation. I do some coaching for some leaders. And the thing that leaders have a tendency to do is keep information in their head and not share why they do things a certain way or why they're making a decision or what they're looking for. Leaders need to share the information about what the needs of the business are with the client-facing folks so that they're armed with that information to make better decisions about how to balance the needs of the business with the client. What you don't want is a leader coming in and always saying, well, why'd you do that? I never would have done it that way. Okay, great. Tell everybody the way you would have done it. Let them know what they're supposed to be thinking. Don't just expect them to be able to balance those needs because you've just told them be more client-focused. Give them a better experience. They're going to take that and do that, but then learn also how to balance that with the needs of the business. Third one, this is true of any change. Empower people at a speed everyone can absorb. Don't over-empower. Give them enough that they can do some work, keep it rolling, and keep learning and keep moving. Don't expect it to be dumping. Don't dump it on them. Give it to them at a rate they can actually make a difference. Because if not, you'll overwhelm them, and then they'll struggle, and it won't be fun. So again, these things are going to shift. They change inside your organization. There are things you can do to make this go smoother. These are a few of the things. As your CX culture evolves and client feedback is more available and measurable, new metrics and standards are created and tackled or tracked. I can read my own stuff. Leadership conversations change. Again, all things you want to happen. You want all this to happen. You want new metrics and standards. You want leadership conversations to change to include client perspectives. This is all really good. Employee satisfaction should and can be connected to client satisfaction. It's tough. One doesn't go up without the other being affected in some way. The goal, I apologize for moving the microphone. The goal is for them both to go like this. Time's up. Okay, I gotta stop talking. Sorry. Okay, stop. The goal is for both client satisfaction and employee satisfaction to rise in alignment with each other because, and everybody in here knows this, happy clients lead to happy customers actually make happy employees. Those two things are in tandem. It's huge. And if you do one without the other, I was just talking to a colleague and I was sharing with her a little bit of this presentation and I'm like, hey, employee satisfaction, I said something about, oh, client satisfaction is really important. They're like, yeah, that's really important at our company. However, employee satisfaction, I wish they cared about that. And if you have an organization that doesn't care about both of these things simultaneously, you're going to be challenged to drive this level of satisfaction that you like to. It's just not going to work. So how do you link these things together? Number one, there is a direct relationship between client satisfaction and financial metrics. Worked with a COO, had a chief operating officer who took client experience very seriously. Wanted to connect the dots for the financial component of it. Was leading a room full of several company-wide leaders who had business unit responsibility. He said, how much business did we lose last year because we didn't listen or because we did not provide a great experience? And it was in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that gave the room pause and they went, uh-oh, we need to get better at this. We need to link that relationship building and that client experience with the financial component. We're missing opportunities. You want to dig deeper into operational practices that impact client experience. Doing a journey map or a touch points exercise or something to that effect is really, really helpful. Knowing where those touch points are, where you can affect that in your existing operations and how the client might interact or experience that is a big deal as well. And again, I just said it, make employee satisfaction an aligned priority with client satisfaction. Those two things have to go together. Was it CX and EX? So there you go. All right, 3 things, final. Number 1, be deliberate in valuing technical expertise. Number 2, educate and empower employees to respond to client feedback. Number 3, connect the metrics. Make sure those 3 things are happening. That'll increase the likelihood that that feedback will impact your culture in the way that you want it to. There you go. Thanks, everybody.